In the world of Tesla, there has been a catalyst taking place. It is a long-running, continuous catalyst, at least according to Gary Black and others, that is supposed to be driving the stock to greater highs. And maybe it started today because it is up today. I have Brian White to talk to me about the Cybertruck catalyst halo effect. Brian, what do you think?
It's exciting.
Why it's going up today?
No,
Okay.
it's just a rubber band. It bounces around. It does its thing. But the Cybertruck is huge. It can't be understated, and it can't be missed. So let's chat about that.
Well, the number one thing I saw this morning that I thought might have induced some excitement was the China folks. There's a few of them over there in that country. I think it's a billion, give or take 100 million or so. And they turn up for events. They have nothing to do in China. I don't know what the problem is, but but they shipped 12 Cybertrucks that could have been going to our friend Larry Goldberg instead of to China, but no, they sent them over to China, put them in showrooms, and now they have pictures, videos of mob scenes, not like in LA or what we saw in the United States, but I mean, they're getting mobbed with thousands and thousands of people wanting to see the Cybertruck. Could that be why the stock is up today?
No, the stock is so big. I always get people saying, "Oh, this, one person said one thing. That's why the stock moved." I've had people say, "Oh man, could you imagine how much the stock would collapse, Brian, if you, Brian, stopped pumping it?" And I said, 0 pennies is how much I am capable of moving the stock. If you look back at the videos right after the Cybertruck came out, we had the Cybertruck delivery event, we had the after party, all those live streams surrounding that. And then right on top of it, we had the CarWow, Carmudgeon, and all those videos showing it. And the stock didn't budge. 10
Down.
10 million views overnight, and with MKBHD and others, and the stock did not pump. So is this moving it? No, it's just the stock market doing stock market things. There's big institutional investors who may or may not be buying in or out, and there's trading algorithms that I think fuel most of the very short term moves. But the excitement is very real and very palpable when you've got a product like this. So, Randy, I'm going to hire a consultant. I need to get some hype into my showrooms.
Hype in your show.
I need hype in my showrooms. What can I do to get people to come in, not to buy whatever it is we're showing, but to buy, just to get in the showroom, just real customers with their feet in the door? There's nothing. There is nothing. Pontiac their last halo was the Sunfire, and it was not particularly exciting, but the real problem was it's the age of the internet. You don't need to go in and see something in person. When the new Corvettes come out, you don't have to go in and see it. You can get the complete picture online, and maybe you'd like to see it in person, but you don't need to. But the Cybertruck, you have to see it. There is nothing like it.
Yeah. So I assume that Tesla sent it over to China. They sent those 12 over there into the showrooms in order to generate a lot of excitement in China about the Tesla brand. And of course, this can have a knock-on effect. People coming in to see the Cybertruck, then turn around, go over, get into their computer, place their order for a Model Y or a Model 3. We'll see if that has any effect over the next few days or weeks. So do you expect that halo effect in China?
100%. You know about branding campaigns? I think people will purchase water bottles just to put their brand in front of people. And what happens is just having the brand on your mind results in more sales. Every Coca-Cola ads do not extol the virtues of the product. They just say, "Hey, man, by the way, Coca-Cola," and it works. That's enough. When it comes to look at all the EV ads that we've seen run during the Super Bowl. They're not about the car itself. They're about the brand. They're about the lifestyle. If you've got people saying, I am going to the Tesla showroom, or posting pictures and videos on social media, that's worth more money than anything else, because that's real engagement. That's real people saying, please look. And then their friends look on purpose all the way through. You can't buy it. So even if they decide they're not going to sell the Cybertruck in China, and I don't know why they wouldn't, it's worth something.
Yeah, no, it's worth a ton. I think actually, like you said, it's worth more than advertising. Tesla made a mention in their 10Q that came out today. They said, we don't do that much traditional advertising, and they didn't put even a number on it in terms of the dollars they're spending on their advertising department. So this kind of stuff, I will say flat out, to the extent that they can continue to brainstorm this kind of idea in order to generate more sales of their cars, it is worth way more than the Super Bowl ad. But they got to keep it up. They got to keep up new ideas, keep on doing it. So you just mentioned my next question, which is Elon kind of poo-pooed the idea of doing a Cybertruck in China the other day. He said, well, it's going to be really hard to meet their requirements in China. I guess, I don't know what those requirements are, but talk to me. Why wouldn't I can't imagine why they wouldn't make one with all the excitement they're getting.
So there's a couple reasons. There's a couple obstacles. Now, I don't know what the regulatory obstacles are. If there are, China doesn't mess around with regulations. They're a little more set in stone than in some places. So if it just doesn't meet the requirements, that's it. It's done. But it wouldn't matter because they're going to sell other cars instead, and this is still a halo. I'm sorry we can't bring this to your shores, but we can't. Now, I think it's more likely that they could bring it, but they would choose not to. They could export them like they do the S and X from Fremont, export them from Austin to China. The trick there becomes with the time in transit, the transit costs, the import duties, they get a little more expensive and less desirable. You could still sell 50,000, 100,000 a year, and that would preserve its status as a halo because they'd be even more exclusive.
Right.
Then the question is, well, why not just build a factory there? And the answer is, I think the priority is wrong. I think they would need to, there isn't a 4680 supply in China yet. That would need to be established first. There isn't, but there is a huge demand for a compact and more affordable model. So if you were to build a factory to make Cybertruck, could you sell 500,000 a year? I think it'd be a tough ask. I don't know that market would bear that many. And to me, that is an absolute minimum they would need to justify a factory, especially with those giant castings they use. Whereas a compact, they could sell millions. They could sell 4 times as many for less than 4 times the price, or for more than 4 times the price.
So you're looking at it as let's get the compact done. And then if we've got money and time and energy left over, a Cybertruck might be something down the road.
Sure. And in the meantime, if it is road legal, we could export them from Austin. It would make more sense to put in a second line and get Austin going even faster and just export them. If you look at the best-selling trucks in the world, they come from here. Yeah. Even when they're sold in other countries, they come from here. Yeah. I think that's, even the Hilux, which is the Toyota line of trucks, those are also, I think, made in other places, but they are also made here because of the chicken tax that makes importing trucks quite difficult.
Right. All right, let's take a look at the other subject I think that might be on the minds of almost all of us, and that would be the ramp on the Cybertruck, because I know you want yours. I know that my wife wants hers. I know that everybody I talk to wants theirs. Have you heard Joe put out his ramp theory? Joe Tegmeyer put out his ramp theory the other day. I mentioned, I think I showed that on this channel the other day. What do you think? He tied it to 4680 production. Is that a smart way to think about it?
So first of all, I do not have one on order It
Oh,
doesn't fit my
oh,
family.
oh,
So I am excited for you to get your delivery so I can come and visit and hang out and drive it around uh, for, a month or two, however long I can camp out in your guest room. So then however long you can camp out in that corner of that room. Uh,
yes.
but
Actually,
the
I was thinking
46,
that you could just, I think, there's quite a lot of room in the trunk, I understand, in the,
oh yeah.
and it's locked,
Oh yeah.
a locked area, so you'd be safe.
Yeah, in the frunk or the vault,
Or the
I'm
vault,
fine either
yes, the
way.
vault, either way, yeah, yeah.
So the 4680 issue absolutely makes sense. 100%. We know that it was supposed to ramp more quickly and it was supposed to ramp into more power dense versions of itself than it did. And they've been working to try and get it dialed in better. We heard on the earnings call, we have weeks of batteries already made. Yes, but you're not making very many trucks. And if you doubled the output next week, your week's supply of batteries would evaporate in like a week to 10 days. So batteries appear to absolutely be the bottleneck. They're making them as quickly as they can at Cato Road and in Austin. And those two alone are not yet capable of providing for hundreds of thousands, let alone millions of trucks. That is absolutely a bottleneck. I didn't see that particular video from Joe, but he does know he knows some things, and he does sometimes have sources on the ground. I don't know if you need a source to figure this one out, but he's seldom wrong. I might go as far as to say, yeah, very, very rarely is he wrong.
I think he comes out with about with 110,000 ramp rate. I'm sorry, annual rate by the end of this year. So that's his curve. So the annual run rate would be about 110 by the end of the year.
That's interesting, and that's reasonably close to what I've heard from, the parts suppliers.
Okay, all right. CarWow did another video just 2 days ago, I think, on the Cybertruck, and it was comparing it to the Rivian and the F-150 Lightning, and he actually had some very positive things to say about both the Rivian and the Lightning. But I was wondering, did you watch it? Did you have a chance to see that one?
No, I haven't seen that one.
I actually had the impression that he was working overtime to try to find nice things to say about the other two, because when he was doing the interior, and I think he gave the interior points to the Rivian. I'm not sure. He talked about the luxury or something about the Rivian. He didn't even mention the sound system, which just days before he had talked about being the equivalent of $100,000 sound system that you would buy a car just to get the sound system. And then, so I thought he was maybe dancing a little bit to not completely diss these other vehicles. But at the end, he gave all the points to the Cybertruck. There was no question. He said, this is on another level, on another plane. Yeah, so, and he had, of course, it of course beat all the other trucks, including the Hummer, in terms of, 0 to 60s, quarter mile, all the rest. Yeah, yeah.
So it is a business. CarWow is a business, and they're in the business of selling views on eyeballs to get people thinking about CarWow. It's their form of branding. What they're doing, I don't think the video is unduly fair to the competition. Rivian is very nicely appointed. It's a nice truck. It feels like a truck that should cost, 30,000 more, because it is. That it should cost 30,000 more. They're losing their butt on it. The Lightning is a perfectly competent, capable truck. It drives nice. It's the nicest ride I've experienced in a pickup. Mind you, I've driven fewer than a dozen, and none nearly as expensive as the Lightning, but it drives great. It's for a first effort, it is magnificent. I don't think it's unfair to award a bunch of points on those two trucks for those things. Now, when I realized that he hadn't mentioned the sound, I thought, well, maybe it's possible that he shot this video before he experienced the sound and that we're seeing them out of order.
Okay.
So, because that would feel like a pretty tremendous oversight. And I hadn't heard much about the sound. I was of the impression that the trucks that the guys got to take out and play around with may not have had the complete sound system or any sound system because nobody really talked about it. And the patent applications I saw suggested there could be a subwoofer under the passenger and driver seats. And if that's the case, it would be the Model Y already has a sound system better than any stock sound system I've ever seen in any car of any level. It's really good. And they're always making it better. But the Cybertruck appeared to take it to quite another level with that. So, yeah. So at the end of the day, you do have to say nice things, even when the nice things are few. It doesn't make sense to ignore, especially if there's only 2 or 3 nice things. You got to bring them up. But at the end of the video, you need to be honest in your assessment. And if the honest assessment was, guys, these trucks are, there's one clear winner here, that came out. So I don't, and I can't blame them for going back to the well, because that well has not run dry.
So there are people out there in the real world, Brian. These are not fake people. These are probably honest. Well, honest is well, there are people that are worried about the take rate. They're saying, well, there's 2 million reservations, but you know, when it comes down to it, some people have ordered 5 and 10 and 20, and they're not going to take all those vehicles. And I know one person that has an order for 20. That's our buddy Brian Wong. He's got an order for 20. And he's not planning to use. Some people are saying, well, they got an order for 20, but if it doesn't have robotaxi capability, what are they going to do with 20? No, Brian Wong has always said, no, he's going to put these up on Turo. There are people putting Cybertrucks out there for $1,000 a day. You pay your entire monthly bill with 1 day of rental. So what do you think? What do you think that some people are saying 40%, some people are saying 60, some people are saying, oh, no, it'll be terrible. What do you think?
So like you and I have talked about this before, if it's absolutely terrible, it's still 2 years of production. So any big concerns that we might have, we can just, 15% of 2 million is more than I think we could make in 2 years. And by then it'll have its own organic order book. 2 million orders will not close, not from the reservations. Many of those will cancel. Now, I don't long said that for the first year or two, every single one will execute, because if they don't want to keep them and they don't want to rent them, they could flip them. Well, flipping is a little off the table now, which is unfortunate. And I think that will impact future reservations. I don't think people are going to be very excited to gamble on the future models if they don't have the upside. People who want to put them on Turo can, but there is a very real risk that the value will collapse the second these hit mass production. I talked with a gentleman in Vegas who owns a bunch of Turo vehicles, including 3 or 4 plaids. And when those were new, he was getting 500 a day, 600 a day, 400 a day. Now he's lucky to get 150.
So just think about it, Brian. If it's $150 a day, and I've done Turo, and I was averaging about 22 days on my Volvo, or on an Acura, I was averaging about 22 days a month on both of those vehicles. 22 times 150 is $3,300 a month. That will be a good deal. I would do that deal all day long.
Right. But it would take 3 years 3 years of doing that to pay off the truck, at which time the truck would not have much value left. I mean, 3 years of constant rental on Turo would beat the hell out of it. I don't think $4,500 a month would make sense. And I think if one person alone had 20 of them in one market, they would destroy their own Turo value. So I don't know if Turo alone would be enough to carry it. Certainly not when we're talking about a high volume car. The Plaid is still a low volume car, and it's barely pulling money at this point in a lot of markets.
I would just look at it the other way, Brian. I would rent it out. If I'm going to get $4,500, is that what we decided? 22,
33.
33, $3,300 a month, $45,000 a year to rent it out. And my mortgage or my payment per month is about, let's say 1,000, 1,200, somewhere in that range, maybe even 15,000 a year. So I'm doubling my money on that year. If I do that every year for 5 years, 6 years, I pay it off. Or if I do it for 1 year and then flip it. So that's,
all of those are gambles, and it's still a business. People aren't generally buying 20 cars for the hopes of paying them off, but for making money. Anyway,
okay.
The lack of robo-taxi will also dramatically impact the take rate, because I know people, I'm sure you know people who bought 10, 20, 100 of them, reserved 10, 20, or 100 of them in hopes of making them robo-taxi. And we are not there. Definitely not with the Cybertruck, which last I heard still does not have any of the autonomous features enabled yet, because it is the lowest priority, unfortunately. So we shall see how that goes.
Speaking of risks, nobody on our that I've seen so far, I haven't seen anybody on X talking about this in the community. I haven't seen anybody on a YouTube video talking about this, because it's a negative, but I think it's something we should bring up. So I'm going to bring it up. People are cutting up carrots. They're making salads. They're making salads with their Cybertruck doors and their Cybertruck front lid. They're saying that the edges are too sharp. They don't have a plastic trim on them. They don't have a rounded edge on them. And they're worried about fingers. And believe me, I've caught my hand in a door. My wife caught her fingers in a door just a couple of years ago, actually. And it's pretty bad on any car. Do you think this is something that's a problem?
So the video, I saw the video where they put in, various bits of, I was grateful that they only used, celery and carrots and not, say, eggplants or cucumbers. But there was also videos with Ford F-150 with the Lightning doing the same thing with its power front.
Oh, interesting.
But it's not unique to Tesla. It is moving parts is what it is. Don't put your finger in a car door. Don't put your finger in anything that's closing. I've never used a truck that had a power hood of any kind. So it's, don't put your fingers in it is I guess my big takeaway. It's going to hurt no matter what kind of operating system. It's going to hurt less if it's moving slowly. One guy on the Cybertruck I did see put his hand in and went ahead and closed it. He's like, yep, that's uncomfortable. I don't like that. Did not break his fingers because his fingers are not made of celery. Yes. So I think that concern is overblown. I think people should be adults and not ask for the whole world to be carpeted for them to walk around barefoot.
Yes, that's true. Absolutely right. Philosophy. That's the part that's been missing from our show. And now you finally brung it. So, all right. So this last setup question, I mean, this is, Brian, this is, a cream puff if there ever was one. Lots of still videos, lots of stills and videos, both of those kind out there all over the place right now. As expected, this is what everybody said would happen. I saw one the other day with, I think it was 7 Cybertrucks going down the freeway simultaneously. Some group, maybe out in Buttonwillow, California or something, some club had gotten together and they had 7 of them already. This is just the beginning. This sounds like we could get what we're looking for in terms of a craze around the Cybertruck.
Was there a question in there?
See, I wrote this and I even, thought about it, and I'm still questioning why I questioned you on this.
So, I was at a presentation by Fully Charged, and Ricky from 2-Bit Da Vinci ended the panel portion and opened up the Q&A and said, we only have 2 rules for your questions. Keep them short, and it must end with a question mark. Because a lot of people come up and try and give a 30-minute soapbox rant. And
yes, that definitely, I've seen that. Yes,
of course it does. So the question sounds like, is the is the hype train just getting going? And if so, the answer is yes. Yes, it's going to be very exciting. Yesterday, I went to the Bellevue Service Center for a event hosted by the Washington Owners Club, where we got to drive the new Highland Model 3, the refresh, and it was wonderful. And we asked, of course, hey, quick question, when are we going to be able to touch the Cybertruck? And he said, not until West Coast deliveries have begun to customers in earnest. Then you can touch it. And he may have sensed my frustration because I have traveled far and wide, lo these many years, to get close to one of these things. And Tesla has made it impossible. So that's the only time I ever touched one. It was a Fremont engineering build that I was told, this will not be sold. This will not go in a museum. When we are done with the engineering on this, it will be retired. And then yesterday I saw a video, a screenshot from of a Cybertruck in Fremont being crushed. I'm like, is this what you do? Because I touched it. I didn't mean to touch it, you guys.
Well, okay, this is a Cybertruck video, but I want to ask you, since did you drive the Model 3 Plus? And the big question I have is, you've got a recent Model Y, and now you've driven the Model 3. What about the suspension?
It's better. It's better. It's so there's a few things that I hadn't seen covered. One is a speed bump in this 3 long range felt softer than in my Y with 19-inch wheels. The speed bump felt fine. It felt like I would expect it to in any car. Softer than an Accord, but not Lexus soft. It felt normal. And that was very surprising. But the ride was quiet. It was very quiet. And like I rolled the window down to get a comparison, but driving on a wet road, you couldn't hear the wet tires. I could not hear the wet tires.
Wow.
The other thing is the sound system is on the next level. It's got 2 subwoofers instead of 1. But what it's also got is a front and rear separation of sound. There's extra speakers on this. The B pillar now goes across the roof. And there's speakers on it. So the adults can listen to, I don't know, shouty, angry radio while the kids listen to Shrek 2. And nary the twain shall cross. I don't think that's quite the right phrasing, but the sound is great. And the benefit of having that cross member that goes across there is your panoramic glass is now divided. It's a much cheaper piece of glass to buy, install, and replace.
Interesting.
So that is one of the cost savings right there.
Wow. So they added 2 parts and got a cost saving. That's unusual. All right, Brian. Well, there you go. We just gave them a bonus Model 3 drive results from you. And there's no way I should ever buy another car, but my wife and I talked the other day, and we said, well, when the Cybertruck comes, will you keep the Model Y and sell your Volvo? I said, well, if I'm going to keep a car at all, I think I would sell the Model Y and the Volvo and get a Model 3 Performance. Yeah. And even that will probably be way more car than I would ever need, since I drive about 60 miles a week.
Why would you do the Performance instead of the long range?
Because I'm still at 17. Yeah.
Yeah. But I mean, I'm telling you, the long range, you'll decide when the time is right.
All right. All right, Brian, as always, thank you for coming on and regaling me. I have no idea whether anybody else thinks you're funny, but occasionally I do. So there you go. And to all of you out there, it's been great talking to you.